likes to play like mother.
So,
oh yes, because she have, even though she don't have focus, it's just like you discipline in the things that you like. When you like something, Lulu, you're very disciplined and focused in what you like. The other stuff is like, oh please. Yeah. All right. So I've answered your questions, my dear.
actually, I have one more question. I remember you said you was Muslim at one point, and then you stopped. Like, what made you change your mind?
Well, what made me change my mind really is exactly what I'm doing today. As a child, right, I knew there was something wrong. But I had parents over me who were Christian, but I had teachers who were Hebrew. I had men in my life, like teachers who were Muslim. And then I saw my teacher who was Hebrew doing certain things that was like the same teacher who was Muslim. So I began to study both. And I realized, well, wait a minute. In this Bible, Abraham had 2 sons. And he had what they say Ishmael and Isaac. But from 2 different women, according to the scripture. You had Hagar, and then you had Sarah. So then you had Hagar, who was the Ishmaelite, and you had Isaac, who was the Israelite. And then it said that Abraham would be a father of many nations. So out of those 2 sons came, the Israelites and the Ishmaelites from the 2 women. But then I start to say as a child, well, but it's the same father. And then it got ridiculous. So you got 2 religions from the same father. And I said, well, they're brothers. Why are they fighting even? You know what I'm saying? So it didn't make any sense to me because one was Israelite and one was Ishmaelite. So one was like Muslim and one was Hebrew. But they still was having the same practices as I looking at it at a child like 8 years old, because when I grew up in Crown Heights around Hasidic, they call themselves Jews, but they're not. But, so my teacher, being that, she was also Orthodox, she used to say, well, we're going to learn this in class. And I was like, do you have a plan for the class? And she would say yes. And I would say, well, can I have it? And I would just go home and do it all. So then it came like I had nothing to do. And when I was in class, I sat right dead smack in the front, in the middle of her desk, like, right there in the front so she could see me. And I wasn't doing any work. And she's like, well, why you aren't doing it? And I said, because I've done it already. So now she began to take an interest in me and start to teach me how to be a Hebrew.
No.
Yeah. And she used to take me to this place called, one of the first things she started to take me was a food place. I think it was called Sabra or something, but Hebrew National, like the Franks and all that, they had a place. But anyway, I learned how to be a Hebrew girl. I was Hebrew, and I was in elementary school. She took me out to, when we had lunch, I didn't have lunch with the children. She would just take me and we would get in her car and we would go away, and she would teach me about Nakwash and Kanish and everything about being Hebrew. So then I would come home from school, and in order for me to get to my house, I had to pass by the Muslim. So what happened is that now he told me about Islam. And that's how I began to see the similarities. So now my mother, at the same time, she was Christian. So I'm looking at all of this religion. And I'm like, they all confused. But the only one that was most advantageous for me was Islam, because it had a lot of discipline, you see. And me being a dark woman, I wasn't being accepted as an Orthodox Jew.
Right.
As a child, I was like, well, I can't go in the synagogue. They don't really esteem me as a Jew, so I can be with those that are Muslim because they're the same. They're just a brother. That was my logic as a child. That's the brother. So even though the Jew won't accept me, the Hebrew, in the synagogue because I'm dark, and I was a child, so I didn't know. I said, well, I'll just be with the brother. It's the same thing. They're kind of doing the same thing, you know, because when you looked at the Orthodox women, they were wearing long clothes, but they wore the wig so that they would hide their beauty. You see, the Muslim woman, she still hid her beauty. She wore the long clothes, but she wore the head covering to cover her hair. But the Hebrew wore the wig. See? So I began to say, well, this is about the same thing. And I just wanted the knowledge and the discipline. But as I got older, Islam became something that became a little bit more burdensome because they didn't accept astrology and numerology.
Yes.
And so as I got older, I was like, they're binding women, they're covering women with face veils, and also they want, you know, the woman to stay like what I call
Docile.
like under control. Because once you know energy and numbers, you know how the universe works because it's all vibrational. So then I said, well, that's not for me because I need to walk in spirit. I am still one of peace. I don't need a religion to define me. So I decided that I'm everything because I've been through everything. And this video is counting down. We've been here on an hour.
Wow.
What can you tell me about my birthday? 8/14. King. King, I will tell you something about your birthday, but it's counting down. 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10. Wait. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3,
2,